clearly accepted. Mr. So-and-so made the presentation, it was. The only reason is credibility. Over a period of time, it has been demonstrated that no matter what the allurement would be, this lawyer will never take me for a ride. Therefore, viewed in the current situation, viewed in the context of loss of trust in China, it is of extreme importance that we, as a country, demonstrate to the world, who will now be scouting around all alternate locations of shifting some manufacturing activities out of China, because they have learned to their horror. They have received this disease from China. The testing kits are from China. The PPEs are from China. The masks are from China. And most of their medications are from China. Their ventilators are from China. This has set all of them thinking. All the countries of the world are now thinking of relocating. India, along with many other countries, Vietnam, South Korea, Taiwan, Indonesia, Ireland, are going to vie to get this pie. In all this, what is important, therefore, is that what we hold out, we must be able to stand by. In this country, we have seen so much of reverence for Rama. Only 2 lines, Raghukul Reet Sada Chali Aayi, Pran Jaye Par Vachan Na Jaye. This was the mantra with which we all grew and we learnt. What it meant was that if I have given you a promise and a word, then no matter what the cost, I will stand by my promise. That, for you, ladies and gentlemen, is the concept of promissory estoppel. And I wanted to talk to you and share with you as to how the law on promissory estoppel has evolved over past 50 years in the country, and how the said law is sought to be now turned on its head. There has been a recent judgment which came about 10 days ago, 22nd of April. Since it came during the period of lockdown, it has not received the kind of publicity which it would have otherwise received. India Inc. is not still fully aware of the implication of this judgment. And that is the reason we thought we will touch upon this subject this afternoon to discuss and decide that at this momentous juncture of this nation's history, when roads of people will come, what is the kind of advice you will give to your clients, and what is we as a nation should convey to people about the state of our law. So what I will do in the next 15-20 minutes is walk you past the evolution of law on promissory estoppel, which has occurred in last 50 years. I think 15 minutes for 50 years of evolution is justified. So what exactly is the concept? Pooja, if you come to the next slide, please. Slide 2, Pooja. Yeah, thank you. Friends, I have culled out a few judgments delivered by one of the finest judges we had in the Supreme Court in the last 50 years. And they have evolved this concept of promissory estoppel. What is this concept? The concept is simple. They keep saying to the government, please be very careful when you make a promise to the industry. When you invite them to set up industry in your locations and offer them incentives, please do all the calculations that you wish to do to assess whether you are in a position to bear that initial sacrifice for a period of 5 or 10 years. During that 5 or 10 years, if you want to wriggle out of your promise, if you want to resile back from your assurance, we will not let you do so based on the principle of promissory estoppel. You would be stopped from resiling back from your promise. That, in short, is the concept. So, for example, in Indo-Afghan, the government, there was an export promotion, and with a view to augment exports, the government said, you export these goods and I will give you 100% import entitlement equivalent to the FOB value. It also provided, in case the commissioner is of the view that the value indicated in export is higher, he may hold an inquiry, give an opportunity, and then arrive at the correct value. On a general feeling that the value seems to have been high, the export commissioner depleted the entitlement by 50% in all cases. He did not exercise his power of inquiry, did not afford an opportunity. The short question was whether, having promised import entitlement and the traders having done all that was required of them to do, whether they would be stopped from resiling back from their promise or not. Kindly appreciate, in case of a contract, there is an offer, there is an acceptance, and there is a consideration, and that constitutes a contract. Here, it's a unilateral announcement by one, and it is not also in the nature of a contract which is enforceable under Article 299. So it has been the argument of the state that it's neither a contract which is enforceable under Article 299, nor it's a contract. The answer to that which has been given is that, sorry, this is not an enforcement of a contract, but this is an enforcement of the promise that you made that you will do so. Induced by that promise, somebody has altered his stand, has incurred an additional expense, has incurred inconvenience, and you cannot therefore take away that what you have offered. This prevailed for almost about 5, 7, 10 years. And in the 70s, we have 79 Motilal Padampur sugar mills, which really laid down the broad contours of the law relating to promissory estoppel. And thereafter, Justice Bhagwati surveyed the entire English law, Australian law, US law, and laid down that what we in this country have been following in the past in stray cases, but what should be the principle which should guide and govern us. A very telling paragraph that what is good for an individual, that he must keep his promise, must be equally, if not more, true for the state who has promised and based on which individuals have acted. In that case, there was a proposal that if you set up a unit in a backward area, we will exempt you for a period of 3 years from sales tax. The company went, obtained written confirmations. Written confirmations were granted by the highest authorities. But after 2 years, they resiled back from their promise and said, sorry, we can't give it to you. Court said, sorry, you will be stopped from resiling back from their promise. For the simple reason that when you invite industry to go to backward areas, there is an additional cost which they would be incurring. There is additional inconvenience involved in going to a backward area. And the equation, the way it is worked out is this, that for an initial period of 5 or 10 years, the state takes the sacrifice, invites the industry, but for the next 100 years, the industry continues to be there. The employment generated, both direct and indirect, continues to be operational there. And that leads to a great industrialization and growth, particularly at a point in time when you wish to decongest the cities and want to establish industries in different parts. You will invite people, but please understand that when they go to such remote locations, there is a tremendous amount of inconvenience to the industry. There is a difficulty in getting good manpower. There is very great difficulty of locating, of carrying the raw materials, carrying finished goods, carrying mechanics for repair in case of a breakdown. Enormous amount of inconvenience. All that is done, that look, if I'll get an exemption for 10 years, maybe for first 5 years, what I'll get, I'll have to additionally spend, but I'll get some money. That induces the industry to go there. Having induced them, you should not be allowed to resile back from your stand to the detriment of the industry. One more important part, the detriment proving is not even necessary. You have said, and based on your offer, the industry has acted and took the decision to come to you instead of going to some other state. You should be held bound by your promise. Then there have been cases where you have issued the industrial policy, but not issued the requisite notification. Each of the laws, whether it be excise, whether it be sales tax, whether it be GST, Customs Act, they have a power to grant exemption. Industrial policy is framed at the apex level, either the chief minister or finance minister. The entire cabinet gets together, decides on the industrial policy. So there have been occasions when industrial policy have been introduced. People have acted based on that policy pronouncements. But actual notification under the section has not been issued or issued rather differently. What you promised in the policy, you have not implemented or not put correctly in the notification. At times, some bureaucrats have been rather oversmart. For example, the exemption has been granted in the policy for a period of 10 years. While drafting the notification, they insert the words up to 10 years. When you point out, after all, as lawyers, you are trained to read such language. When you point out, industry would say, sir, if we point out at this stage, possibly they will completely take away the exemption. By now, we have already sunk the investment. Investment is already made. What you see in courts later, to your horror, is the senior most officials of the government have no qualms in saying, kindly read the notification. It said up to 10 years. And therefore, we should be able to withdraw the notification at any time. Before that, 10 years was the outer limit. This goes against the grain of justice, equity, and good conscience. The principle of promissory estoppel is basically reminding us that please be guided and governed by the principle of justice, equity, and good conscience. When they came out with the argument that we may have said so in the policy, but you as courts can only look at the notification. The statutory notification does not give, and therefore we'll read only the notification. Courts have answered that very correctly, and that is very important. That please remember that when you give exemption under the policy, you are effectively exercising your power granted under that section of that statute. Therefore, even if you may not have specifically said so in exercise of powers conferred by so and so, we would deem this to be an exercise of power under that specific statute. This is extremely important because there have been numerous occasions when there is a dichotomy between the policy and the notification. And the argument is only read the notification because policy has nothing to do with it. It's a general document. The answer is no. The mother notification is the policy. And your effectuating notification, which is the notification issued, is only effectuating that intention. So therefore, both are treated as exercise of powers under that specific section. And policy has been given a higher pedestal, having been issued by an authority like the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister of the state. Therefore, the fact whether you have issued notification which is in consonance with the policy will make no difference. People will go by the policy. This is the development which has taken place, where the court said even if the power is not indicated in the policy, we will assume that the power has been exercised under that very section, and this would be considered as the main source of power. Similar thing in the case of Suprabhat Steel. Exactly, policy said X, notification was issued at variance. Either such are intentional deviations or they are accidental deviations. But courts have maintained if this is repugnant to the main policy, then to the extent of repugnancy, we will ignore the notification. Nestle is another classic example. By now, we have traveled to 2004. In Nestle case, all the slides are with you, all the facts and the law are I've put there. So kindly have a look at them. I don't want to spend time there, but I think we must talk of the concept more. In Nestle, the chief minister announced in the Sabha of farmers, the company and many other companies were engaged in manufacture of milk produce and milk products. They were buying their milk from various cluster of villages in and around their respective factories. There was a purchase tax imposed on milk. Various representations were made. The chief minister announced in that congregation of the villagers, announcing through a thunderous applause that the tax would be abolished, the purchase tax would not be levied. They called all the manufacturers and said, we are not levying the purchase tax. We do not have enough money. So this money which you are going to save as a result of purchase tax plus the hassle, please spend in arranging for improvement in the milk centers, which otherwise were our responsibility. Please try and spend some money on cold storage facilities, etc. Industry was very happy to do that. Industry did that. Finance minister reiterated the decision again in the assembly during budget speech that we are going to sacrifice our revenue to this extent. We are going to exempt purchase tax. No notification issued. Finance secretary writes to the excise commissioner saying, please put a proposal. Again, 2-3 months pass. No, in the meantime, purchase tax is not collected. Whatever would have been collected has been spent in creating facilities. And therefore, all that was required has been done as far as the industry is concerned. This brings us to almost 1 year. Each time industry raised, they said, what is the problem? Chief minister has announced it. Finance minister has announced it. Why are you worried? 1 year passes. 97, the cabinet meets again. Situation on the ground has changed. And they take a decision that the initial decision which we took of granting exemption, we don't approve of it. So the notification is not issued. Now you are landed with a situation where there is no policy as such which has been issued in earlier cases. There is no declared industrial policy which you can say this is an exercise of that power. You only have oral pronouncements of the chief minister and the finance minister, and you have no notification. Justice Rumapal, one of the finest judges we had in the Supreme Court, went out of the way and said, sorry, you have held them and you have held out to them. There is no question of your going back. We will issue you a mandamus to issue a notification. Therefore, there is no question of recovery of tax for the period of 96-97, during which you had made these announcements. This is the extent and level to which the concept of promissory estoppel was developed and taken. I'm making these submissions so that by 2020, when I talk about the recent development that has occurred, I will like to show and demonstrate as to why all of us need to know this change of jurisprudence completely. It's a complete U-turn and a change of law which has happened for the last 50 years, which has happened 2 weeks ago. And this would cost this nation heavy if we do not wake up, and if this judgment and this mindset of the government with regard to this concept is not altered. If people come here, invest money, and after 2 years you are allowed to wriggle out of the promise, and if the courts were to uphold that decision, God help this nation, I don't think we will get any fresh investment at all. if that is the correct advice conveyed to the foreign investors. Today in the euphoria, today in the current milieu, maybe some people may want to come to this country, but this is of extreme importance that whatever we hold out, whatever we say we are able to do, we must be held to our word. Repeatedly courts have said, don't promise. If you cannot hold to your promise, please don't make it. Please consider repeatedly. If you don't keep your promise, or not in a position to keep your promise, or if your financial condition is likely to change, please take stock of it now. Only then issue such notifications. If you issue, please see that you must abide by it. Sun steel. Industries are developed in the hills. So the notification said, if you go to the hills and set up the factory there, we understand the difficulty, we understand the additional cost, we will charge you 33% less power rate than what we will charge at the normal plains. Industry felt attracted, many went there. There was a reorganization which took place. UP became UP and Uttarakhand. So there is another debate as to what happens when the states are reorganized. Is the Uttarakhand responsible to keep the promises given by UP? My respectful submission is that these technicalities need to be abolished in the current scenario. We must look at the macro terms. These minor arguments may win a particular case, but will lose us the long battle which we will have at our hands. That is the purport of my submission this afternoon. Same, the Supreme Court passed an excellent order in Sun Steel, held out the principle of promissory estoppel, but in their exuberance, or maybe not very correctly drafted, one paragraph talked about that if you have the power under Section 49 of Electricity Supply Act, and the section is not empowering you to withdraw the concession, you cannot withdraw. So on the main principle, it remained that you have granted the benefit, people have inconvenienced themselves, people have gone and established units there, you have got all that you wanted to get. Now, please don't deprive them for the limited period of 5 or 10 years that you have promised. In their anxiety to do that, they went to the question of Section 49, and it was pointed out that that is rather a wrong reading of Section 49. So the limited issue before the court came that when such notifications are issued, whether Section 49 must have that power or not. In doing so, you went back and the two arguments were advanced. One, look at the section itself. Each of the sections which grant exemption, be it Section 5A, be it Section 25 of the Customs Act, be it Section 11 of the GST, each of the sections which enable issuance of a notification for grant of exemption implicitly have the power to rescind, have the power to withdraw, have the power to vary. In any case, look at Section 21 of the General Clauses Act. That says very clearly that if I have the power to issue, I have the power to modify, and I also have the power to vary and rescind. These arguments were pressed, forgetting about all the concepts of promissory estoppel. And this argument has now found favor. Therefore, it is important to know the distinction between those string of cases where government comes and announces a scheme, invites the industry, industry makes substantial investments, does all that is required to be done. Industry goes to God-forsaken places like Orai, like Bajpur, like Dhampur. You have not heard the name, Nilamangla, Koramangla. You have not even heard the names of those towns. We have units established there. It takes 2 or 3 hours from any town to reach there. They've invested 100, 200, 500 crores in set up industries. And now we want to deprive them. And mind you, in each of the cases, if you look at the history of promissory estoppel, no state in the country, I repeat, No state in the country has not been dragged to the court on the ground of promissory estoppel. Every single state, state of UP, state of Bihar, state of West Bengal, state of Karnataka, state of Kerala, state of Jammu and Kashmir, every state of Maharashtra, every single state has had this change of heart in the midstream. After 2 or 3 or 4 years, they've put pressure on the industry and withdrawn the exemption, compelling them to fight a long, protracted, uncertain battle for 8, 10, 15 years up to the Supreme Court. Luckily, with all these judges and very good court, the judgments have been, the doctrine has been refined each time, and better benefits have been preserved. Devi Multiplex, again, similar situation. You tell somebody that I will hold your industry, your cinema halls give it this status of an industry. Having given that, whatever is due as a result of that, and people are making substantial investments, you have to be holding your promise. Then comes the second set of notifications, where government simply fixes a rate and the notification provides a certain date up to which it shall remain in operation. For example, supposing Customs Act, you issue a notification today and say this shall remain in force till 2021 April. Circumstances change, international prices change, government has done the recalculation. The prices which were very high earlier, international prices have come down. There is no need for an exemption. Therefore, the exemption is either curtailed or withdrawn. Nobody was induced. Nobody was asked to invest. Government simply withdrew the notification before time. Kasinka trading and Shriji sales are two of the judgments which have been pressed into service by government repeatedly as the law on the concept of promissory estoppel. These are 2 or 3 judgments which have on the line where there are no invitations. In fact, each of the judgments are saying so, that there is no question of promissory estoppel here. Government did not invite anybody to set up the industry. There were only notifications, and government has demonstrated before us that we issued notification in public interest, but now there is a supervening public interest. Therefore, we must be allowed to resile back from our stand. That was agreed by the court in those exceptional cases. May I just go to the slide of Manuel Sanz straight? Slide 19 would be there. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. In July 1986, the state of Kerala issued a government order declaring tourism as an industry. Apart from other concessions, exemption from building tax was granted, and for the said purpose, Kerala building tax was to be amended. A hotel was constructed in 1991, and when building tax was demanded, you challenged saying that you have granted the exemption. Building tax was amended, Section 3A was brought in. Later, Section 3A was removed from 1993. The question was that during up to the period of 1993, that the whole power was removed, whether you should get it or not. Next slide will show you what has been held. And it's a very beautiful judgment of Justice Nariman, written as a fresh air, breath of fresh air. He held that one of the maxims of equity is that one must regard as done that which ought to have been done. So if the notification had to be issued, or if you had to amend the law, we will take it as if you have done that. A ministerial act of issuing or not issuing a notification will not make a difference. If promise has been held out and persons have acted upon it, it must be honored. Promissory estoppel is a doctrine whose foundation is that an unconscionable departure by a party from the subject matter of an assumption which has been adopted by the other as a basis of his course of conduct should not be allowed to pass muster. And you must do justice. Indo-Afghan, Motilal Padampat, Nestle, Devi Multiplex all reaffirm this. Next slide. A two-judge bench, that was Justice Nariman's bench, has commented upon a three-judge bench decision in Siddhabali case, which I talked about section 49 of the Electricity Supply Act, saying that, sorry, Kanishka trading has been wrongly understood. Now, these are the two judgments which have been time and again pressed by the government, saying that we have the absolute power. They said, please understand, Kasinka was a judgment which itself holds that no incentive was offered to any industry to use PVC resins. So there is no question, there is no and besides, you proved supervening public interest. There is no doubt that this being a doctrine of equity, if you show better equity, if you show supervening public interest, this equity must yield, which is perfectly legitimate. But you as a government must satisfy. And mere ipsa dixit of the government will not suffice. Government will have to show as to how the circumstances have changed, why you should be allowed to wriggle out of your promise, and why and how a better public interest now prevails. Then they point out very importantly that Siddhabali judgment was limited to interpretation of section 49 of the Electricity Supply Act. Sun Steel took a very restrictive view of section 49, and that restrictive view was to be corrected. Siddhabali relied upon J.K. Udaipur Udyog case for doctrine of promissory estoppel, but missed the reading with the very next paragraph of that judgment, which said, thus what is granted can be withdrawn unless the government is precluded from doing so on the ground of promissory estoppel. Therefore, you have the power under section 5, and therefore reliance by Siddhabali on above judgments, when it comes to non-application of the principle of estoppel, would be wholly inappropriate. Therefore, that portion has been treated as an obiter. This was the judgment till 2016. Now we have a recent judgment about which I was mentioning, VVF, if you can show the facts, please. And the facts of VVF are similar to the facts, maybe in a lesser scale there and more scale now, as what we are having in COVID-19. VVF and Hindustan Unilever in Assam, I and Bipin had something to do with those cases. You will recall in 2001 January, there was a devastating earthquake in Kutch. Everything was reduced into rubble. Men, buildings, existing factories, everything was destroyed. In July 2001, to attract large investment and setting up of new industrial units, exemption notification was issued, granting total exemption from excise duty. The scheme provided that the manufacturer will receive raw materials, take appropriate sell weight credit since the duty would have been paid, manufacture finished goods, pay appropriate duty after utilizing the sell weight credit, and whatever you pay through PLA, I will give you a refund next month. So the whole scheme was well devised. You get the raw materials, they will be duty paid. You take credit of that duty, sell weight credit. You manufacture goods, do the value addition. And when you pay the duty, first use the total sell weight credit and pay the differential duty. Whatever duty you pay through PLA, I will refund next month. So 100 rupees, if you pay, I will refund you back 100 rupees. So net liability on you as a new industry, having decided to go to Kutch and help our cause for a period of 5 years, this is the exemption which I will permit. Net payment was nil, payable by the unit. They were wanting to expand in Maharashtra. Next slide, please. They were wanting to expand in Maharashtra, but they decided, instead of expansion, let us go and set up a new unit in Kutch. Let us suffer all the disadvantages. Let us start and rebuild from rubble and create a structure there. They set up the unit, but in March 2008, the notification was substantially amended, and the 100% exemption was substantially cut to 34%. A new concept of value addition, which was hitherto not there at all. All that you said was, whatever payment you will make, we'll give you exemption. Now, They successfully challenged the above premature withdrawal of the benefit before the Gujarat High Court, succeeded there. Matter went to Supreme Court. That is one appeal which was there. Next slide, please. Likewise, in the Northeast, from 1947 to 1997, no industrial development whatsoever, virtually what the name, took place in Northeast. For the simple reason that for setting up a unit near Guwahati or in the interiors of Guwahati, Assam, you had to take the goods from Calcutta, traverse a distance through various jungles of almost about 2,000, 2,500 kilometers. So your raw material has to travel that distance. Your finished goods also has to come back because the consumption in Assam is going to be very limited. With this, in 97, the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, when he went to Assam, he announced a package. Please set up the industry, but I'll give you an exemption for 10 years. From 97 to 2007, all industries, new units, plus all those existing ones who did the substantial expansion, were allowed full exemption from excise duty and income tax for a period of 10 years. What you told them was that there will be a complete holiday from these two taxes insofar as you are concerned. State was also asked to pitch in. State also gave an exemption from sales tax. That made the whole thing very attractive for an initial period of 10 years. Major industries went there, set up units. Same scheme, you get the raw materials, get the sand weight credit, use the sand weight credit, and whatever you pay by PLA, I'll refund you back. It worked very well. There is no scheme that we know of where some people will not cheat, where some people will not misuse. But what has that got to do with the others who have done nothing wrong? So this exemption continued from 97 to 2007. 2007, they found that what we never achieved from 1947 to 1997, we surpassed that in multiple times in just 10 years. Let us extend this by another 10 years. 2007, you issued the policy, extending it by another 10 years to 2017. So new units are come and those units will be entitled for next 10 years after they are set up. After having issued this notification in 2007, in 2008, you amend the original notification much before the expiry of the 10-year period that was granted and truncate it to 56%, 34%, depending on which tariff item your goods belong to. Obviously, this was challenged successfully because those were the laws by the Supreme Court over a period of time. You have invited me, I have changed my stand, I have set up the unit, I have suffered all these additional costs. Please, for heaven's sake, only for the limited period that you had promised, please give me the exemption. Post this, for the next 100 years, you're going to get the revenue. Supreme Court, so this was the appeal. The judgment which was delivered, now let me just show you what contentions were raised by the government in the next slide. This is important. This shows the change of mindset. The reason I'm saying, and the reason why I clubbed the subject of changing landscape post-COVID and changing jurisprudence is this. These are the contentions raised by the government about 6 months ago. If you continue to raise these contentions, the entire concept of promissory estoppel is out of the window. If that be so, then the state of law in this country is this. I may promise you today, I may set up a separate zone for you, I may promise the moon to you, but please be aware, once you have made the investment in my country, and you can't take away the factories, you can't take away the bridges, you can't take away the highways, 2 years later, I would change the law. And this is the argument which will sit. Central government, by the very same power by which it grants exemption, is empowered to withdraw it. Notifications are only a modification to effectuate the real intention of the government for withdrawal of the benefit. Various other manufacturers, not petitioners, had misused the exemption and therefore curtailment was justified. Kindly see the argument and then I'll show you what the Supreme Court has held. They are saying, yes, we have curtailed, but curtailment is justified because some people have misused the exemption. So argument of the petitioners was, those who have misused, please catch them, please prosecute them. Let the law take its course. Why are you penalizing us? The Supreme Court went to the extent of saying that nothing was curtailed. I'll come to that in a moment. Since some unscrupulous manufacturers engaged in tax evasion, the withdrawal of the exemption or curtailment was justified. Subsequent notification is clarificatory in nature and therefore can be made applicable retrospectively. So from 100, we came down to 56. And they are saying our intention was always to give you 56. No, forget the policy. Forget the law laid down that the policy is the parent and mother document. Forget about that. We will make it applicable retrospectively. Next slide. Industry contended that, sir, you promised us 100% excise exemption for 10 years. And this was the parent notification, and which has remained unamended till date. Neither the 97 policy nor the 2007 policy has been amended. Policy remains intact. Any effectuating notification contrary to mother notification will be bad in law. Therefore, when you promise 100% exemption, you are now giving it 56. Please don't do it. You can't do it. Promises having been made and industry having altered their position based on policy pronouncement by the Prime Minister, no less. Government must be held bound to it by its promise and should not be allowed to resile. And we please catch and punish those who have breached the law. We have not involved, we have not done anything wrong. How can we be disturbed? An extension of policy for further 10 years in 2007, what better proof can you demand that the policy was well understood, you got the benefit of the policy, you thought it was good, and it was some, I will not use the word clerks, but some administrators in the ministry who thought that we must tinker with the notification. The government must say, no, we cannot do it. Now, what the court held? Court applied the law laid down by Kasinka. Kindly recall when I dealt with Kasinka. Kasinka was a judgment which only talked about a simpliciter notification, where only a date was provided. Nobody was invited. Nobody was told. There is no industrial policy. Nobody is made to invest. You're already invested. You already have a unit. And you are being promised that that exemption goes away. It is like income tax rates. I, as a professional, may start my practice tomorrow having the rate X, and supposing government says this rate shall be for 3 years. But after 2 years, they find that no ABC reasons have impelled us to change it, they may change it. You have not induced me to do something. That the Kasinka was applied. Supersession or revocation of an exemption notification in the public interest is an exercise of statutory power of the state. Withdrawal of exemption in public interest is a matter of policy, and the courts would not bind the government to its policy decisions. So we'll wash our hands off. General Clauses Act provides that power to issue a notification has the undiminished power to rescind or modify the notification in a like manner. I'll show you what, please go to slide of, next slide. One more. Then I'll come back to this. Sorry. Just one prior to that. General Clauses Act 1. General Clauses Act. I'm sorry. That should be 22. Yeah, sorry. Power to issue, to include power to add to, amend, vary, or rescind. This is the General Clauses Act. Whereby any central act or regulation, a power to issue notifications, orders, rules, or by law is conferred, then that power includes a power exercisable in a like manner. To our horror, the court has said, read 5A, read 25, read section 11 in conjunction with 21, and you will find that they have the power to rescind. And that's it. So they've exercised that power. If they've exercised that power, then where is the question? This is the logic which has appealed to the court. Please go back to the slide with regard to VVF held. Thank you. One minute. Next one. Then they say the Siddhabali Steel held that the subsequent notification to industrial policy is in clarificatory nature and it does not take away any vested rights principles. If therefore, what they have said, and with great respect to the court, the whole argument was that, sir, policy is 100%, notification is 56%. In the order, possibly as lawyers, we have not been able to make ourselves clear. With greatest respect, that's all I can submit to the court. That unfortunately, the court has said notification stroke policy. But that was the whole debate. Policy said 100%, notification is saying 56%. You are saying we dismiss the writ petitions, we allow the appeals of the government, and please assess according to notification stroke policy. How will it be implemented with great respect? Policy is saying 100, notification is saying 56, and that was the whole debate. Now, if you hold that, look, they always have this power to withdraw, this I respectfully submit is totally contrary to the concept of promissory estoppel as it was evolved in the last 50 years. Repeatedly, the court has said, we will hold you by your promise. And that is what has held this country in this manner. But if this is the law, and if these are going to be the arguments of the state, I respectfully submit, A, either the court must revisit it, or it must have it referred to a larger bench to get the law clarified. In addition, forget about the court. The central government and all the political parties must come together and take a view that let us give exemption only when we are certain as a nation to give an exemption. This is the time for that kind of an action. What has been done with regard to GST, where you have shown a great amount of maturity and sagacity of center and states coming together, sitting in the GST Council and acting together, you need something similar. So you don't need a situation where by change of regime, X has granted the benefit, then you withdraw that benefit and say, sorry, there's something hanky-panky must have happened. Please don't grant such exemptions. Please sit together. The government and the opposition and the entire parliament must sit together, must decide what you want for the nation, and then evolve a policy which must be kept static for a period of 5 years or 10 years, knowing fully well that we will sacrifice our revenue so that we are able to bring the latest of technology, talent, and teaching into this country. You have to bring 3 T's if you really want to rise as a nation: talent, technology, and teaching. I'm so glad that what we have been wanting to do in law and judiciary for last many years, COVID has achieved it in about 2 or 3 months. Now we have e-hearings, we'll be having e-filing, we'll have everything online. So we must adapt to the new technology. We must have artificial intelligence. We must have machine learning. We must put them to use so that what we count as our strengths, what are our strengths as a nation to project to the world? A, we have a thriving democracy. That we have a rule of law. We have a great judicial system, no doubt. But look at the clogging in the courts. And it is not the fault of the judges. Unfortunately, judges cannot defend themselves. Please understand, the example is something like this. You have collected some 100 top-class chefs, and they are all ensconced in the kitchen. And now you have invited unlimited number of guests. And each time you peep into the kitchen and said, how much time will it take? The cooks have no role in invitations. So you keep on amending the laws, you keep on bringing new laws, you keep on creating new remedies, you don't give better implements to the kitchen, you don't augment the number of cooks required, and each time you go and ask the cooks, how long will it take? And suddenly you have an unlimited guest list. There is no control over how many people you don't know. So you have brought new legislations, which will be good legislations, but that will generate litigation. How will they cope with it? Unfortunately, they can't come and defend themselves. That you have not done the requisite exercise of finding out how much judges additional will be required when you bring out a law of this kind. You bring out something like 138, very good, check bouncing. But suddenly, if you have 50 lakh cases, how will it be dealt? And then you go and peep into the kitchen and say, how long will it take? With great respect, that is not what is going to improve. Not that they have also other implements available. They need to shift from knives to cutters to mixies to better devices. That will take time. You must sanction that. Today, all of us have seen what Alexa can do. I have to simply ask for an old song of Baju Bawra and Madhumati, and 3 seconds the song is played to me. Why can't the same thing happen for judiciary? Everything is possible, everything is available. I only have to need to put it in the same manner. I should be able to say how many judgments on this. It should just give it to me in 3 to 5 seconds. We don't have to waste time. Our judicial energy and energy of the entire bar and the entire judicial system must be for creation of a ground where the landscape is made so well that we receive people who will bring technology to our country, who will teach us what to do. And with great respect, if you want to really convert a world-class human capital, we will have to shun our arrogance, and we will have to be humble, and we'll have to show humility. Let us remember, each corporate entity coming to this country from different parts of the world is there in business. He is there to make money, and making money is not bad. Unfortunately, in our country, and we must do that critical appraisal at this point in time, because we are in a stage of resetting the whole agenda once again. We will be taking fresh guard. We must make the opportunity of that. We must revamp our education system. We must bring everybody, whoever can teach me for next 10 years, make my boys who are now 10 years old, next 10 years they'll become graduates and postgraduates. We must harness them. I have worked and associated with industry in some little way. We have exceptional talent available in industry. Harness them. Forget public sector, private sector. They are excellent entrepreneurs. The country is littered with diamonds, with jewels. Let us collect them and let us make necklaces out of them. We are unnecessarily bogged down with small things which make no difference at all. Judicial time is being wasted on whether we should have liquor or no liquor and how many bottles and what manner it should be supplied. With great respect, don't get involved in all this. People want to drink, fine, let them pay revenue and let them have it. Create some system of distribution. What is the problem? Don't spend your precious judicial time in doing all that. What is required is concentrate the entire energy in identifying the areas which will make it difficult destination for this country to receive capital. Other countries are waiting in the wings. Vietnam is waiting, South Korea is waiting, Ireland is waiting, Bangladesh is waiting. We will lose the entire opportunity as a nation. When clients of yours come and ask you for advice, we are entering into this JV, we are being given this, shall we set up a new unit here? I thought you must be aware so that you can create awareness in the whole system within the industry, because the shoe is really pinching to the industry. They must wake up and make a noise and tell the government, don't announce anything if you are not going to abide by it. If you announce an VFV Act, please put it in the Act itself that you will not touch it for next 5 or 10 years. And make it very clear so that bureaucrats are aware. We have one of the finest bureaucracy, very intelligent, very sharp, but unfortunately, the old mindset has continued as colonial masters. This needs to change. We must, when somebody is coming with a proposal to invest in your country, he must be received with great honor. He should not be ridiculed. With great respect, we need to change our mindset. And for us to be able to tell people that this is an aberration in the change of law, and otherwise what has happened for 50 years will remain intact, we need to have a situation where a prime minister will make an announcement after discussing with the opposition that whenever new industries are going to be announced in the current scenario, and this is like, you are in the cusp of history right now. This is a rare opportunity for this nation. If this opportunity is lost, I do not know when we'll get another opportunity. We have excellent people but our workforce is not employable. Let us understand that very clearly. So let us not tom-tom about the fact that we have a very young population. Yes, we have, but we must train them. Get the best trainers. Be humble to them. Invite them. Have a spread red carpet for them. Offer them something for 10 years. And tell all lawyers on both sides, this is what we have offered, we'll abide by it. Not that 10 years will make it into up to 10, we'll insert something else and we'll raise. Those kinds of litigations we do not wish to fight anymore. We wish to see this country reach different heights, which it is in a position to reach. The kind of scientific community that we have in this country, one of the best scientists, top class scientists we have. We have great technocrats, economists, people, lawyers, chartered accountants. Let us harness their energies. Let them not be worried about, and let them not have their practice only based on finding out some loopholes in the law and say, let us do this, we can save you some, and 5 years of litigation will fight. No, that will have to change now. A new dawn must emerge. And it is my hope and prayer that these kind of aberrations are sorted out, taken care of. We make this nation as a nation of investment, as a nation of growth, and we put our entire workforce into such an intense training of technology and automation and everything that we are not able to recognize this nation after 10 years. That was the limited submission which I wanted to make. Friends, thank you very much for your very great patience.